Welcome to another episode of What's Up Irvine. I'm Curtis Dreve, your host, and this podcast is about everything that makes Irvine a great city. Its people, culture, influence, and opportunities. My hope is that by following us, you will learn something new and interesting about our city and feel more connected to our community. So with me today in the studio, we have Maddie Hirneise, CEO of Families Forward. So Maddie, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so before we jump into talking about some questions about life and things, I'm going to read a short of your bio, so give our followers a little bit more familiarity with your background. So with that, Maddie Hirneise is the Chief Executive Officer of Families Forward, an organization committed to preventing and ending family homelessness. Maddie began her career at Families Forward in 2012 and held various positions before becoming CEO in 2019. Under Maddie's direction, Families Forward has seen great success in their housing programs while maintaining a reputation as leaders in quality care. In 2022, Families Forward improved the lives of over 13,000 people. She is a returned Peace Corps volunteer who serves in Guatemala, where she worked with local agencies to provide basic medical care and train volunteer women's groups, local business owners, and youth groups in preventative health. She is a proud anteater, and alum of UCI's California Alliance for Minority Participation for STEM Education. So, Maddie, welcome again to the show, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Are we going to tell the audience about my typo?
You know what? That is actually funny, and I kind of said it there, but you want to share it, or actually, I'll share it right now. So, as Maddie's assistant sent me the bio, and I read through it, I'm like, wait, she was with the Peace Corps. I'm like, what is a retuned Peace Corps volunteer? And I asked you that just a few minutes ago, and you're like, what?
I said, that is a typo. That is a returned Peace Corps volunteer.
It's returned, so yes. I had to correct myself. I think it came as returned.
It was perfect.
But I was like, I've never heard of that, and I was going to have you share about that. So anyways, that's part of the fun of the show. We can kind of do whatever we want here. So
yeah, this is great.
Well, I know we've met before and talked, and you've got a rich background and you've done a lot. So I like to go back to some more of your upbringing to kind of share with our viewers and followers some of who Maddie is, and then we can talk about what you do as well. So, growing up, I guess share some childhood experience or some fond childhood experiences or experience.
Absolutely. So I am technically born in San Diego, but only spent a brief couple of years there. Don't have a lot of memories. The majority of my memories are actually growing up on grad housing. So we lived in Verano Place at UCI.
That's the UCI, yes.
Well, my dad was going through medical school and my mother was going through school to become a teacher.
Okay.
And they did split when I was very young. I was about 4 or 5 years old. And we really stayed on graduate campus for a little bit until, we decided that unfortunately we needed to move to Colorado to be closer to family and get that support system. So I had a lot of hodgepodge. I remember starting...
But you started out in Irvine.
Out in Irvine. I remember going to Turtle Rock for our kindergarten and Los Naranjas for elementary, and then kind of switching around, but I never really had that stability. And then kind of flipping through schools. And it actually wasn't until we came back to California and landed in the South Orange County area that I actually completed school for an entire cohort, a high school years altogether. And that was pretty exciting and valuable. So I just remember a lot of up and down, just a lot of flexibility, making it work, making new friends, and being able to kind of go with the flow whenever I could make it work.
Yeah, I've had people I've talked to that actually kind of messes with them, but you've turned it around to like you've really embellished it, and like that's been part of like exciting life, right? Being in so many places and experiencing so many things at a young age.
Well, it takes the fear out of a lot of things. It takes the fear out of being in a crowd of new people because you've done it every year for your whole life. So definitely a skill you can harness.
You're right. You pretty much have to get a new group of friends, and so you can't be an introvert.
Yes. Yeah.
It would be very difficult.
It would be.
Well, with that, you've had a upbringing, starting in the UCI campus and all that. What, either mom or dad, maybe share some best experience or what some life lessons that one of them or both of them have taught you.
Yeah, you know, although my parents divorced when I was very, very, very little, and my dad was in the picture as much as he could be going through school, my mother really was kind of that single income earner, mother of the year. And one of the main lessons that I learned was very early on hard work. I remember a time where she worked full time at Kaiser Permanente. She was doing holiday postal service for USPS and working at a 50s diner called Gunther Tootie's, all at the same exact time. And so just to make it work to ensure that my brother and I had a roof over our head. And I learned that from a very, very early age, that independence, hard work, you know, being able to kind of show that grit makes all the difference in the world, and prioritizing your family. You know, I think looking back on it reflectively, you don't realize, you know, mom not being there because she took the night shift at the diner is because she was doing it for us. So hard work would be one of the most valuable lessons I learned.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing how many jobs and what people can do for their family and their kids, and how important that, how impactful that is, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously that you saw that.
I saw it. Now, maybe it took me a while to kind of retroactively look back and realize.
See it better.
I see it better now. But even in that moment, I realized, I remember at one point, my mom was so determined to give my brother and I our own individual rooms, especially as we approached our teen years. And but she couldn't afford a 3-bedroom. I mean, and it was just, obviously in Orange County, it's very expensive.
Yes.
And so she actually let us take the rooms, and she slept in the living room. And again, looking back, kind of the sacrifice of, I want my kids to experience having their own room so that they can grow up to be independent teens and feel like they have their privacy and their space. But I'm going to go ahead and sleep in the living room.
Committed mom.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Wow, that is very impactful.
Yeah.
So with just, you know, throughout some of the things you just described, what's, I guess, a pivotal point or a time in your life that really changed your direction, changed your course?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to poke some fun at myself because I could pick many different pivotal points. It's funny looking back on the kind of paths that our life takes us. But actually, I enrolled into UCI. I was bio major, and I was a pre-vet. Veterinary medicine was the way to go for me. I had actually worked at a veterinary clinic throughout all of high school and college, so I had about 8 years of experience.
Wow, that's a lot.
And I remember, I will tell you, when I got to my sophomore year, organic chemistry was the first and last D I would ever receive. It was not meant for me. I was not a math person. I realized that being in veterinary medicine was not saving puppies from a burning building. It was truly the math and science behind the medical mindset. And I just didn't have the skill set for it. So I realized that pretty early on, and I pivoted directly into international relations, which actually was the motivation for me to get involved into the Peace Corps. I realized, helping people, helping puppies, it's all about giving back and being able to support, especially those that are less fortunate or innocent, especially in the work that we do with children. And so giving my service to the Peace Corps was a way for me to hopefully learn who I was outside of this country and outside of, you know, the college framework, but also to give back to a community.
Yeah, wow. So from organic chemistry to international relationships to Peace Corps and Guatemala.
Yes.
So what was it like in Guatemala?
Guatemala is a beautiful country. It was an incredible experience, but I will share with you that I gained a heck of a lot more out of that experience than I probably gave. The Peace Corps service in itself is a wonderful opportunity, and if there's any listeners out there with
it's okay. You can make a plug.
Young ones who are interested and just want to talk to somebody, please reach out to me. I'll convince them. I'll push them over the edge to make that jump. But the total immersion experience of being in a different culture, you know, first of all, allowed me to really embrace my language. So I am a Spanish second language learner, but I grew up with it, and I refused to speak it. I didn't feel comfortable speaking it. And I understood it. I could read it. If I heard you talking, I knew what you were saying, but I never felt comfortable to speak back and confident. And that total immersion allowed me to really walk away with fluency and being able to have conversations with my abuelita that I never was able to have before.
I bet.
Beyond
changes a lot.
Beyond, do you want a glass of milk? See, it really just beyond that, really talking about regular things that you would talk about with your grandparents, from political ideas to their history and her growing up in Guadalajara. So that in itself was priceless, growing up and being able to take that away from Peace Corps. My service in the Peace Corps and what I did is kind of split into two factions. So we had one-off projects, so building latrines and stoves and things that,
Okay.
it's great for the time being, but without upkeep might not be that most impactful
Yeah.
difference. And then the most impactful piece of work that I did was these promotora groups. So the idea that how do we continue this education long after I'm gone, after my 2 years of service are over, who's going to continue this work? It's not just another Peace Corps volunteer, but
Yeah.
how does the community really engage?
Yes.
And so what I did is we've created these women's groups. And so in my town, I know you are familiar with Guatemala.
Shela.
That's about an hour outside of Shela.
Yeah.
And we had these aldeas in all with different directions. So in the main town, primary language is Spanish. Spanish is my second language. In these aldeas, primary language was Mayan. It was
I know, pretty amazing.
The Quiche dialect.
Yeah.
So the Spanish being a second language for them, we had a common bond. We both learned Spanish as a secondary language, and they could then translate that material into Quiche so that they could continue that education to
Yeah.
the Aldea population that had not learned Spanish.
Yeah.
And so teaching them how to facilitate workshops, the preventative health measures, that was the most valuable experience in my mind beyond what I personally, returned or received in return.
No, that's really, and ties in really well with what you're doing right now too in the the organization. But I don't know. I loved when my wife and I went to Guatemala a long time ago. We loved the country, so that's why I'm very interested in that, and
Yeah.
I figured we could share that with our listeners for a little bit, give them
Yeah,
some extra
we
culture
have our
going
tourist
here.
hotspots. Where do we
Yes.
want to visit?
Oh,
Lake
right.
Atitlan.
Yeah,
Lots
exactly.
of wonderful,
to call,
beautiful, yes.
things like that. So,
Yes, highly recommend it.
so back to, I know you started in Irvine at one point.
Mm-hmm.
What brought you back again? I can't.
So, actually, the funny story is I was returning from the Peace Corps. And for those of you that aren't familiar, the Peace Corps service, you really, you pack up your apartment, you sell your car, you put all
Yeah,
your
you-
box into your mom's house and say, please hold on to this
Yeah,
for me.
you're
I'm going to be
gone.
gone.
Yeah.
You're completely gone.
Yeah.
And so coming back without a job was absolutely terrifying. That hard work ethic in me, just how do I hit the ground running again? And probably in, hindsight, should have given myself some breathing space. But I wanted to find a way to be sustainable and to have a job when I got back.
Okay.
So I thought, look, I've done this great work with these women's groups. They're all volunteers. I can be a volunteer coordinator. So I actually applied for a volunteer coordinator job at Families Forward.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of people in our community are probably very familiar with my predecessor. She's not the founding executive director, but we call her a refounding, Margie Wakeham.
Margie.
And I will tell you, Margie said, you're not getting the job. You don't have the patience
Sorry,
for it.
you don't have the patience.
And little
Okay.
deer,
Oh, no.
in the headlights moment,
You're like-
this is a very weird way not to get a job. But she looked at me and said, I have another job for you. I think you'd be perfect at it. Don't have a job description, but I know what I wanted to do. And essentially, I was the first housing navigator in Orange County. So
Okay.
my role was very different from a case manager role in creating relationships with property owners and, opening second or third chances, third doors for families that on paper may not look as competitive to another tenant that might be walking through the door.
Okay.
But if you give this family a second or third chance, you get us. You get the support you give this family an opportunity to really get on their feet
Okay.
and get the
Wow.
education they need to stabilize.
So were you a case manager? You kind of were.
It's mostly housing. So a
was
lot of my
housing.
role is finding housing landlords and property owners who are willing to work and commit.
So you had to
and
negotiate and
connect
convince.
with us, and so from there it just
Okay.
blossomed, in any true nonprofit fashion and most work fashion. Someone retires, he's like, I can do that. I can do that.
No problem.
And just throughout my journey, was able to really touch every single program, service, housing arm of our world operations, and it just was kind of a natural progression. So that's the funny story of how I landed back in Irvine.
Okay.
Was just I thought I could be a volunteer coordinator, and she saw right through me.
I like that. Sorry, you can't. You're not going to get the job.
You don't
Then
have the
you're like,
patience for it.
Before you leave, though, I
Yeah.
have something else for
Exactly.
you. So what's CEO? You've gone through actually that makes you even more valuable to the organization by having gone through the ranks basically and trying all the different positions. So. That's really neat to see, and I think the corporation would probably, or the organization would probably say that's probably why they, you were a natural fit. So,
Yeah.
what is like one of the most difficult? Let's go with the challenging. What's the
Yeah.
most difficult part of being CEO?
So I think the most difficult part of being any CEO would be HR. I think for especially COVID. I was lucky or unlucky enough to become
Because 2019 when
CEO in 2019,
yeah, right before,
right at the end, and 6 months into the job, a pandemic hits, and you're going from, serving 60 families a week in our food bank to 750 families a week by April. I mean, that's practically
it went from
overnight.
60 to
750.
Wow, that's
with 0 volunteers. So we went from 26,000 volunteer hours a year to zip. And then how do you make that work? How do you,
right?
right? And then,
Wow.
in thinking about just all the mental anguish, we were all kind of experiencing uncertainty. And I just think it's, culture is so important to our organization. We have a really strong, friendly and relaxed culture, but we have very high expectations of the work that we do and the program and the quality of services that we offer. And so maintaining that, it's just a constant game and dance. You want to make sure, from a nonprofit perspective, that we can compensate accordingly. We can attract talented people.
Yeah.
We can retain talented people. We can provide benefits in certain ways maybe that we can't compete with a corporation, but you're looking for mission-driven people. And it's an interesting dance. I'd say
I say
probably
so.
is the most difficult thing.
HR though, okay.
In addition to, and it's not a bad thing. I think has to be a priority. People and talent, continuity of care for the families we serve. The last thing we want is a revolving door for that family. We want there to be continuity.
True.
And so it always has to be a priority for us. And within limitations that we have as a nonprofit provider, it makes it challenging, and we do a heck of a lot more with a heck of a lot less. So it is very challenging to want to do all these things and maybe not have the financial resources to do so.
Okay, well, you said quite a bit there. So that was actually a surprise answer for me, HR.
Keep you on your toes.
Yeah, no, I know. So what about the other side of the coin is what's one of the most enjoyable parts or best parts about
the people, HR.
HR, really?
I'd say both sides.
Okay.
Again, the people are really what make the difference at our organization. The staff, the talented leaders. I mean, and we are very, very fortunate to have an incredible team. But it takes work. It takes work to have a strong work culture and to create an environment where people are attracted to that culture and beyond the mission work. You can attract people that are mission driven, but if you don't have a culture that will retain that talent, then you've lost that. You've lost that gold nugget.
So are you looking for people now? Are you can make a plug for HR?
I'm not happy to. Absolutely.
Okay.
We're looking for looking for a family navigator right now.
Okay.
It's a contract position. So if you're looking to give back and to help families that are on the verge of experiencing homelessness, so we're working with families at risk of eviction, this is a perfect role for you. So definitely take a look at our website.
Okay. Is that more of like the preventative?
Preventative, more preventative.
Because I remember talking with families a while ago when they were still just thinking about that.
Yeah, so
like 5+ years ago. It's been a while. It was like
about 6 years ago, and I'm happy to talk a little bit more about our programs and services if you allow that platform. But about 6 years ago, one of our front desk volunteers, was feeling, a little frustrated, right? Because we had to look at the emergency housing situation with families that are falling into homelessness, sleeping in their vehicle, camping at O'Neill Park. We had to look at it, and we were looking at it with limited resources, limited funding as a triage, like an emergency room triage.
Correct, yeah.
And so about 6 years ago, our process was, okay, families that are in their vehicle get priority. But then it kind of left families that were at risk and the upstream part as not a priority.
Yes.
And so realizing that as a volunteer, this individual, she's an incredible supporter and donor and on our board, said, we need to do more. We need to do more. It's not good enough to say you're not homeless enough. So how do we run both parallel programs together? Not one over the other gets a priority, but we work on not diluting our services to serve families that are experiencing homelessness. We're not taking away from here to serve here.
You're doing more.
But we're building more capacity for prevention.
Yeah.
And it's like preventative health, right? You have to focus on catching them before they fall over the edge, before the traumatic effects of homelessness really affect that child.
Yeah.
For us, adverse childhood experiences that a family or a child witnesses. So the definition in our term is called ACEs. So if a child witnesses domestic violence, one incident, that's one ACE. If a child spends one night in her vehicle, that's one ACE. Those ACEs follow that child for the rest of their life.
Oh.
And their trajectory is actually, they have less likely to succeed or to be independent, and they're more likely to fall back into homelessness as adults.
Yeah.
So if we can help avoid the trauma of homelessness, hopefully we can break that cycle. And so that's where we really started to build up that prevention program.
Okay,
6
that's
years
great
ago.
to hear, because I know the county did a study a few years ago about like the cost of homelessness, and I think it was amazing, like to keep them housed, and before they're in their car or losing, it's like, I'm just going to throw it as like 50 times cheaper to keep them housed, even if housing is expensive. It was something like that.
Exactly.
And so the preventative is near and dear to my heart too, just especially it's gotten even tougher, I guess, out there.
And COVID and the eviction moratorium, really, we were able to expand that program pretty significantly, working very closely with the city of Irvine. Last year, we served 448 families on the prevention side only.
Just in Irvine?
Just not in Irvine, but all of Orange County.
All of Orange County.
The number one city we do see is Irvine for prevention services because of our proximity to the city, our history with the city. Obviously, we're a longtime community partner with the city.
Fabric of this,
That's typically the number one city we see for our food and for prevention services.
Okay, so that's good for people to know, actually, because it's easy to live in Irvine, again, right? You know what I'm going to say, and everything looks perfect, but there are a lot of struggling families.
Yeah, there's a lot behind the scenes.
A lot behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I will say, so we have this definition of at risk, I'm going to lose my housing. That's one. And then we have, I've lost my housing, I'm sleeping in a vehicle. That's two. There's a whole other population. And this is kind of our housing insecure population that, is doubled up, tripled up, paying in their own motel out of pocket, that are kind of in this rut, this cycle. For example, if you're a family that's paying for your own motel out of pocket, technically you're not considered homeless under the HUD definition.
Oh, I see.
But if you were someone else is paying for it, you could. But how do you get out of that rut? How do you come up with $6,000 in security deposit? You don't. You just keep going and grinding and grinding. And so that's a whole other population, I think, in the future of our organization we want to continue to invest in. But the reality is housing insecurity affects many families in Orange County.
So if someone is listening or following this right now and they know someone that is sleeping in their car or whatever, what can they do? What's the first step with families forward?
First step is, so we are very active in what's called our family coordinated entry system.
Okay.
And the good news in that is that the family providers in Orange County are talking. And that makes a big difference for a family that doesn't have to tell their story over and over and over and worry about, did I get the right person at the right time who answered the phone? I got a voicemail. So we are the access point for the city of Irvine and for South County and Central Orange County. We actually have a second location. But I would say if you're when in doubt, go to our website. It's families-forward.org.
Okay.
And you'll see a big old banner. It says, are you a family in need of housing? Click here.
Click there.
That's it. That's the next step. And if access to technology or web-based is not an option, you can call our front desk.
Okay.
And I'm happy
and
to share
they answer the phone.
They answer. So our front desk is 100% staffed by volunteers, as well as the food pantry. That's my other plug. If you're giving me the platform,
hey, I am.
We need more front desk volunteers. Post-COVID, it's
still haven't recovered from
not
that.
on the front desk. It's a job that is so incredibly special, but it does take somebody who can have a warm and voice on the phone and is going to be hearing some emotional stories. And it's a very heavy position, but there are so many of you out there that would have that caring heart for this role. So we definitely are recruiting front desk volunteers.
Okay, well, there you go. You'd have
plug away.
Yeah, hey, might as well. I mean, when I got introduced, I met Margie years ago when it was Irvine Temporary Housing and Families Forward. So it's been a fabric of this community
for many years,
many decades.
40th anniversary will be next year.
Yeah, so it's huge in this community, and so it's okay giving plugs here. So with that, then how can our followers help you help the organization? I guess.
Well, we are very, very fortunate that we are going to be partnering with the city of Irvine to create some education and awareness around summer hunger.
Okay.
So one of the programs that we operate is, of course, food services. It's a supplemental food program, so it's not going to be the end-all program for a family, but it helps to avoid that decision between rent and food on the table for my children.
So is this fill up your pantry type?
Fill up the pantry.
So people can go, okay.
Exactly.
Right.
But some of the reality is that, during the summer months, a lot of our donors donors, they're thinking about vacations and summer break, like, a lot of people are, and they're not necessarily thinking about giving. So our donations dip pretty significantly during the summer months. This has always been a historical challenge. And we do our best to kind of ramp up in the spring and, hoard in the holiday season, because we know that we're going to be dry in the summer months. On the flip side, as schools are out, children don't have access to the free and reduced lunch program. So the need actually significantly increases. So from the month prior to this month, we had 100 extra families than we did just the month prior. And we're starting to see that upward trend start now. So we're partnering with the city of Irvine to do a summer hunger campaign. We're going to be at, most every, concert in the park and drive-in movie theater.
All the city events.
Game events, all of these things. And we'll have a collection barrel. And
it'll say summer hunger barrel or
families
something.
Forward. So if you're going to go to a concert in the park, stop at grocery outlet, grab some
bring
food.
Stuff, bring food.
Grab yourself a charcuterie board for the concert, and then, a bag of non-perishables, and please, donate while you can. We'll also have booths to provide more resources and education, but we are really strongly committed to creating some awareness for this campaign and to be present at the Irvine events this summer.
So again, that's all summer.
All summer long. Yeah.
Okay.
Through
There's
July and
another
August.
plug there. So we help fill the shelves.
Yes,
right?
please.
So, well, let's couple of things more. Just maybe some fun questions, shifting gears a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you do have spare time, like a hobby or what do you like to do?
So I think one thing that you didn't mention in my bio is I've got 2 little ones. So I have a 2 and a 4-year-old. Little girls.
Life's busy.
Life is busy, but we always try to make time for fun. And my husband and I, a little tidbit about us is we're actually renovating a 1970 fiberglass camper. Slowly but surely.
Okay.
It's a very small little box trailer, and creating those family camping memories with my children. We went 3 times, and it was an absolute blast.
It doesn't matter where you go. You could go around the block probably with a 2
go
and
to
a
the
4.
end of the
cul-de-sac or something.
But I got it in my mind. We were at Costco one day, and I thought, oh, look at that flooring. It's $10 off. I want to redo the flooring. And so, of course, it turned into if you give a mouse a cookie, and I lifted the flooring and just saw termite damage.
Oh, no.
Termite evidence.
No.
And so we realized the whole thing needs to be gutted. So it just kind of snowballed from there. So we've gutted it. We're painting it. We're rebuilding it slowly. But it is one of those projects that my husband and I can do together. And it's been really fun. It's been really fun to kind of just do something together. And eventually, hopefully August is the goal, that we'll be back out at the state parks.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. So that's okay. Well,
that's the goal. I mean, it's been offline for a few months. So.
That's okay. It kind of ebbs and flows, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, that's good to know. And busy life then. So CEO, and then you're a busy mom, and 2 and 4-year-olds. It's busy.
It's busy, but I will tell you.
But it's joyful.
Being a mom makes me a better leader, and being a leader makes me a better mom. 2 girls.
2 girls, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of life lessons from each side of myself, right?
Okay.
So, what I can bring over to be a better leader or a better mother, it's only icing on the cake.
So with other kind of extracurricular things, so when you do have spare time, so I mean, what's a go-to? I like to talk about food.
Yeah.
So is there a go-to cuisine or anything that you would enjoy the most?
I'm not picky, but I never land on the perfect, I love this place. I like to try many new things.
Okay.
I'm not a creature of habit in that sense, but when I do go to a Mexican restaurant, I judge that restaurant by their chile relleno and how good it is.
Okay.
So that's very a test for me. My threshold is a certain place, and it will never recreate the best one I had was in Guatemala.
Oh, I
Besides
bet.
my grandmother's.
Oh gosh.
So I have a high bar there, but that's how I love to go to different Mexican restaurants.
Tamales there. I think it was tamales. Yeah, they were.
And the breakfast.
Yeah, anyways, we're talking about food here,
it's so
okay.
Good. It's so
Hope
good.
we were making you hungry, whoever's listening to this.
The plantain, so good, yeah.
So as kind of a takeaway, we'll wrap things up here. What's maybe some fun facts or interesting things that our followers would know? What would you like our followers to know about you as who Maddie is? Or
I'm a marathon runner, so you wouldn't believe it.
I didn't know that either. Okay.
I'm a covert karaoke lover. If you really put me up to it, I will get up there.
Give you a microphone, turn some music on. Okay,
Get me going.
what genre? Anything?
You know what? When in doubt, Les Miserables and a little Broadway action.
Oh, really?
Gets me going.
Wow.
It's not good, but it's
That's
enjoyable.
karaoke, though. That doesn't matter. You just cut loose,
Just
right?
cut loose.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I love, I really, really was turned on to podcasts during the pandemic. I didn't feel like I had the time prior, and I've substituted that. And so there's a couple of really fabulous podcasts, everything from, Don't Roll Your Eyes, the stereotypical true crime, all the way to there's this wonderful podcast about the child care crisis in America and just really what we can do to help support working mothers. So everything in between.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, thank you for sharing that with
Yeah.
us. So, well, thank you for being on the show. This has been good to get to know you more and share more of you with our followers and listeners and the organization and who is Maddie and all that, some of your upbringing. So thank you again for being on the show. And I'm going to thank you for following us and listening to us today on another episode of What's Up Irvine. And if you have any suggestions for people or topics, please email us at info@loveirvine.org. And we'll take a look at it, and maybe for a future guest or topic, we'll take your request. And so thank you again for joining us. And Maddie, thank you so much again for being on What's Up Irvine.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to you.